What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so this is the situation we have right here. Invest 95E has formed, and we're going to go ahead and cover this real quickly. We have the current storm information right there. Please excuse me for that. Its current location is 13.2 degrees north, 108.0 degrees west. Maximum winds are now 25 knots, or about 30 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure is 1,009 millibars, and the radius of maximum winds is 80 miles. And if we can take a look at the satellite, the storm activity has died down a little bit, but that doesn't mean this thing's not going to develop, and the NHC agrees with this. There is now a 70% chance of development in the next 5 days, and we're going to have to pay attention to this as hurricane strength is possible. And we'll go over those models real quickly at a later time. And this says a 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time right here. Offshore southwestern Mexico. Shower activity associated with a broad area of low pressure located several hundred miles southwest of the southwestern coast of Mexico is gradually becoming better organized. Environmental conditions appear conducive for further development, and a tropical depression is, quote, likely to form over the central or western part of the eastern North Pacific Basin later this weekend or early next week, while the system moves generally westward at 15 to 20 miles per hour. The formation chance in the next 48 hours is now 40%. It was at 30% earlier this morning. The formation chance in the next 5 days is 70%. That's been remaining so for the last day, so we're going to have to keep an eye on it as time goes on. Let's go ahead and take a look at those global sea temperatures just to show you. And in the area it's developing, we're looking at 29 degrees Celsius, down to 27 potentially at this rate right here. It's around 82, 81, 83. Okay, I said that wrong. 81, 82, maybe up to 84 degrees Fahrenheit right there. So we're going to have to pay attention to it as time goes on. So that's the situation we're looking at. Let's go ahead and take a look at the tracks and the intensity. The track models right here, as you can see, they have this thing moving basically due west, and some models have it moving west-northwest after the 3 days right there. The H-Wharf has this moving further to the north than these do. The rest of these keep it below 20 degrees north. The H-Wharf has it above that. So we'll have to pay attention to it as time goes on. The majority of the models, at least for the next 3 days, have this thing moving to the west, so we'll have to pay attention to that. The intensity models are also a bit interesting. We have 3 models right here that have it going up to hurricane strength. The H-Wharf is going really crazy up to category 2 strength for an invest. For me, it's too early to say how strong this thing's going to be without further data, so I'm going to refrain from making an estimate for the time being. But the majority of these models do agree this thing's going to be a tropical storm. It's a very clear winner that this thing's going to at least be a tropical storm. We have a few models getting this up to hurricane strength, and we have the H-Wharf going up to category 2 strength. I think it is possible, but right now it's too early for me to say if it will or not. So we'll have to pay attention to it as time goes on. Let's go ahead and take a look at the models. We're going to look at the HMON, the CMC, the GFS, and H-Wharf in that order. The HMON will start right here. This is Invest 95E. So yeah, that's the situation we have right here. This is the Invest. Here we go. So as you can see, it takes its time developing. In the next 3 days, this thing actually has it developing into something with tropical storm force winds in the next 48 hours. I think it's too soon to really think that. I think it's going to happen like 3 to 5 days. That's my personal guess right there. And the HMON starts to reflect that, starts getting more organized, and it slowly develops. It's still somewhat of a tropical storm. It's still getting its act together in the next 5 days. We'll just have to pay attention to it. Once this thing does develop, we'll have to take a look at the Kona, and we'll have to compare with that. Let's go ahead and look at this. The GFS, actually, the CMC we'll look at next, actually, because I want to take a look at this. This is generally the more moderate model we have right here. So this will be an interesting thing to take a look at. The CMC actually has this thing developing in the next 48 hours and strengthening into potential strong tropical storm or weak hurricane strength right there before slowly stagnating and weakening, as you can see right here. So with that being said, we've basically taken a look at the CMC. We're looking at strong tropical storm strength with this one, which is quite interesting considering that this is usually the most conservative model out of the 4. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the GFS because this is an interesting run I've noticed right here. This thing develops, it starts organizing in the next 60 hours, then it strengthens into potentially a hurricane by the next 3.5 days right here. Strong tropical storm, potential weak hurricane right there. This thing ends up bottoming out around 986 millibars right there, and and the GFS is estimating this to be a mid-range Category 1 hurricane before ultimately weakening and just basically moving through cooler waters as it's actually approaching Hawaii as well. The GFS as it's approaching Hawaii as a tropical storm or tropical depression, which, considering how cold the waters are around Hawaii, this thing's not going to survive any impact. This thing has it making landfall on some of the Hawaiian islands. We'll have to wait and see because there's a lot of uncertainty. This is like over a week out, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, we're going to go ahead and go to the most aggressive model we have here, which is the H-Wharf. The H-Wharf is very interesting right here because this thing actually has this developing and strengthening in the next 24 hours, which I don't think is going to happen. Like, we can even take a look at the satellite imagery. That's nowhere near from that happening. It's cycling right at this point. The cloud tops have warmed up considerably. So unless we see a lot of storm activity and unless we see a lot of organization very soon, this scenario is unlikely at this time, but we'll have to still pay attention to it nevertheless. This thing kind of takes its time developing, and then it starts strengthening into a hurricane right here. It eventually bottoms out, interestingly enough, down in 967 millibars right here. 967 right here, which that seems a bit far-fetched right now, but we can't discount it because it's so early out, and this is one of the model runs that have been accurate for the last few times. This thing was surprisingly accurate with Hurricane Bonnie. It was accurate with Hurricane Agatha, although it went off on a limb. It had it making landfall as Category 3 status, but that's besides the point. So we'll have to pay attention to these model runs, but this thing, as we go on, it kind of stagnates and starts slowly weakening after this in 5.5 days. So we'll have to pay attention to it as time goes on. The Hawaiian Islands, when it comes to that GFS run, having hit the Hawaiian Islands, it's just too early for me to really say anything at this point. So we're going to continue updating you guys as the situation develops. But with that being said, it's going to really wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps me out and helps me make more videos like these. The goal of this channel is to get more people engaged with weather, which at this point I've been covering everything with hurricane season right there. But yeah, I took a day off yesterday just to do a couple of things, and here I am once again. So with that being said, guys, have a wonderful night. Stay safe.